Thank you. It's great to be with all of you today. And Chris, thank you and your colleagues at World City for your leadership in putting this forum together. It's a special community you're building, and nothing could be more important right now at this moment. And we're recovering from two very difficult years that really hit urban areas the hardest, to be thinking about urban innovation. So first, just a little bit about New York, and then I'll talk a little bit about EDC and where we fit into the mayor's plans for the city and the city's future in general. I think you would all agree with me that a strong New York that represents about 10% of the nation's economy means a strong nation. A strong national economy generally means good things for the world. We all realize how interconnected our world is now more than ever, with the conflict in Ukraine. So it's just fantastic the way this group brings leaders and thinkers from across the world to share ideas. It has been a challenging time. This was really the epicenter of COVID. 1 million jobs lost over a 18-month period. But there's a lot of good news, despite some of the headlines that you may be reading. We've realized now 7 straight months of job growth in the city, about 160,000 jobs since Mayor Adams took over as mayor in January. Enormous amount of small business creation. So if you look at new business startups, every month we're adding net new business startups, 5,000 just since the beginning of the year. 11,000 over the last year. 1 in 10 businesses now in New York City were created in the last 12 months. That is incredibly promising. VC investment in New York City remains very, very high, a little lower than last year. Last year was an extraordinary year, but significantly higher than 2019, the year before COVID hit. And that's really an indication of the growth of innovation sectors in New York City that are so important to the city's future. Workforce participation is at a 12-year high. Now, what has that meant? That meant our unemployment rate ticked up slightly from 6.3% to 6.6% in the last month. That is obviously concerning, but we are happy that more people are back in the workforce. That's a good thing for the overall economy. But that unemployment rate is too high. It's double the national average. So even though we are adding jobs at 8% and the rest of the country at 4%, our unemployment rate remains stubbornly high because we're still closing that gap of 1 million jobs that we lost during COVID. And the inequities within those numbers are extraordinary. The unemployment rate over 10% in African communities and higher for communities of color across the board. So what this mayor and Deputy Mayor Torres Springer have laid out is a 70-point blueprint to really drive our recovery that says it's not good enough just to go back to what we had in 2019. It's not good enough. We have to do better. So what are the tools that EDC has to do it? It's pretty extraordinary. So EDC is not a government agency. We're a private not-for-profit. I'm appointed by the mayor. The mayor controls our board. We manage 66 million square feet of property, about 20 million of it actively. The revenues off of it funds the 550 staff people we have and the idea generation and sector growth across all the innovation sectors in New York City. We have over 100 different real estate transactions ongoing right now. We have a $9 billion capital plan. So tremendous tools to have impact. So where are we trying to have impact? We're trying to have impact in the innovation sectors that are already growing in New York City or we see on an uptick. We've got to start with green tech, clean tech. So important in the post-COVID era, so important in the context of climate change. I got a briefing the other day on how if we don't do anything in Lower Manhattan, we're going to have 5 feet of water there by 2050. We must think new, we must think creatively, we must retrofit our buildings to bring down the fossil fuel footprint. So we are driving that sector very hard. The place where it's exploded the most is in offshore wind, where we've committed over $200 million of city money that's going to generate 13,000 jobs and many billions of dollars of economic impact in the coming years. We're actually catching up to Europe there. We're now diving into the next few sectors around building retrofits where we can see real growth in the innovation sector. We are very deep in life sciences. One of the great things about this job is that you inherit good progress that's made by previous mayors. So going back 30 years, the city has tried to seed and build the life sciences sector. We are about to give it a major shot in the arm and grow it tremendously in New York. There's over 3 million square feet of private sector biotech space being created. In our assets, particularly in Kips Bay, we're really going to drive that. So how are we driving equity in all of these sectors? Let me stop on the sectoral update and talk about that for a minute. I'd say that there are 3 main ways. One is in minority and women contracting. We have a program that works with over 100 MWBE contractors on our construction program. We're now expanding that so that in the green tech, clean tech space, MWBE contractors are prepared to compete. We are making sure through a series of programs that on BIPOC entrepreneurship, we create opportunities for people of color in this city to participate in those innovation sectors that we are driving. Thirdly is there's a deep commitment, and I've had the good fortune of working with Eric Adams now for 20 years, going back to my days running the Brooklyn Navy Yard, a deep commitment to connecting DOE students, CUNY students, to the jobs and the sectors of the future that matters. We did that at the Navy Yard. We're now going to do that on our sites across the city, whether it's Kips Bay in Lower Manhattan, or the Kingsbridge Armory up in the Bronx, or Morris Park up in the Bronx, or Long Island City, or the shore of Staten Island, where we expect the next iteration of the offshore wind industry to come. What are some of the other sectors that we're focused on beyond green tech, clean tech, and biotech? So in the more traditional tech sectors, we're really trying to narrow our focus down to several where we can have a significant impact. So cybersecurity, AI machine learning, fintech more broadly, blockchain, sectors that are growing very, very fast where we have to make sure that we support it, particularly with creating pathways for local New Yorkers into that job and foreign investment coming into the city. Absolutely critical for us as we look forward. On our capital program, we are one of the key city agencies driving resiliency in the city. So whether it's bike lanes or fortifying the bulkheads and reimagining a lower Manhattan with a series of marshlands and breakwaters to deal with the future conditions through climate change, EDC is in the forefront of that and leading the charge. So we are bullish on the city. The city has rebounded every time from major crises. Just in my lifetime, 9/11, Storm Sandy, 2008. We're going to do it again in COVID. We're going to do it in part because we have the talent here, we have the brains. So many of you in the room care about this city passionately, care about creating a more equitable and inclusive city, and that's going to be at the core of what we're doing in the next few years at EDC. So thank you all very much.